Very interesting story coming out of Sweden. Carl-Magnus is a man who one day noticed the way his kids acted about video games, particularly violent video games, where you're playing as a soldier, what have you. At the breakfast table or dinner, he was talking to his kids, and the kids acted kind of like that was real life. Like that's how war actually works. And since this man is a DJ, a systems analyst, a journalist, a university professor, and a triathlete, I don't know where he found the time to do all that, he decided to take his kids into a war zone. He took them to the Gaza Strip and Syria to show his kids what war is really like. And in the course of doing that, his kids' minds changed about war. And they saw how it was very different from how it's portrayed in a video game. I mean, it's really obvious that it's two different things. But in the mind of a child, it really isn't. Because after all, that's one of the things that makes them children, is in a large part not being able to tell the difference between what's on TV, not experiencing, and actually experiencing something. And this has become a huge uproar. He's been called a bad parent. He's been vilified for taking his kids to these war zones to see what war is actually like. Now, of course, this is a very dangerous thing to do, taking your kids literally into a war. But on a level, I think it's pretty awesome. He showed his kids reality, and they began to see for the first time, for real, what it is that they've been playing and doing this whole time. A video game company representative actually took to attacking the father as well. And he said, oh, well, it's much safer to go play one of these video games than it is to go have a pretend war in the woods or to actually go to war. I mean, if you really go out camping and stuff like that, you could actually fall down and break something, and you could get seriously hurt. So what's the message being here? Rather than in what is a controversial way to educate your kids about the realities of war, instead have them play a video game because it's safer than going hiking or having even a vacation that's like a paintball game? I mean, what's the deal here? This guy's trying to educate his kids, and he's choosing a really pretty creative way to do that. But the video game company representative is just like trying to, denigrate that and try to make it look like he's actually doing something else. What the father really wanted to do was to educate his kids and let him see the reality, and for them to also acknowledge the very privileged position they have in the world, being in a Western social democracy. This is his exact statement to that effect. But in Sweden and Europe, we are very privileged. We have all this wealth and rights and social services, and that comes with the responsibility to educate ourselves and not just become zombies playing video games and consuming hamburgers. I think it's pretty clear what he's trying to say here. He's trying to bring the reality of the world to his own kids and let them see what it's really like. And I think the crack about hamburgers was really directed at Americans. I think in his own way he was trying to say he didn't want his kids to end up being Americanized. And I think that's what it's really about. However, he is correct about the privilege, but I don't think it really tells the whole story. He is correct when he says they have a tremendous amount of privilege, and they have a duty, a responsibility to educate themselves about the world around them. However, here's something very interesting that he didn't note for obvious reasons. The benefits that he enjoys, that his family enjoys, that the Western world, including Europe, also enjoys, is built off the exploitation and, frankly, the complete murder of the third world, particularly in the locations where he took his kids. And these are not the best examples of exploitation through imperialism, but they are a good example of the act of imperialism itself being carried out in an attempt to subjugate other peoples for the wins of, frankly, capital and for the privilege of first world people. This is it. I mean, this is one of those big examples of the difference between the first world and the third world. To the majority of the people in the first world, war is a video game. It's something you play. It's something you do for fun. It's something that you ignore your responsibilities to do. It's something you skip school to do. It's something you do when you end up not caring about anything else. It's a fun, leisurely activity. And in the minds of these kids, that is what it is. But for the rest of the world, Gaza, Syria, tons of parts of Africa, and frankly the entire Middle East. War is a reality of something that they suffer as a result of that system. To them, war is not a game, it's something that's very real and ends millions of lives every year. And that's a big difference. What's important to note here, the point that I'm making, is that the children of the first world in this privileged position don't have to experience that. To them, it will always be a game. To children and everybody else, the adults in the third world, it's a very real reality where people die, and there's a tremendous amount of suffering. And those two contrasting experiences are one of the main differences between the first and the third world. The first world doesn't really experience that much violence, but the third world suffers extraordinary violence as a result of the system that dominates both their lives. The point here is that one of them objectively benefits from it in a material way. There's a material benefit from it. And the other is subjugated and loses in a very real material way. That is the point that I want to make in the difference between the first world and the third world. Thank you for watching. Please comment and rate the video. If you liked it, hit subscribe or check out some of these other great videos. If you wish, share it on social media. While you're at it, why don't you follow me on Twitter? And if you got time, go on over to the MRN bookstore and check out some of the latest books available.